Hi, welcome to my channel and welcome to my first book haul video. Today I have 12 books from the past month and a half. 6 are like regular books and then 6 of them are manga. I figure I'm gonna rotate through them based on when I got them. And the first set that I have to talk about, I have 2. The first one is Bones of the Dragon by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. From what I understand, this is about some like sea raiders called the Vindrasi, and they're like god blessed, but with those gods there's like a war that's brewing between them and like the newer gods that are coming in. And in order to stop the new gods, the old ones are sending basically they're blessed on a mission to retrieve something that can help them win this upcoming battle. I have never read anything by either of these authors. I know one of them, it says, wrote the Dragonlance series, and that was something I've always wanted to read, but I've only ever been able to find it in mass market paperback books, which I can't stand. So I haven't really had the opportunity yet to check those out. I could probably find them like ebooks, but just haven't gotten around to it. But yeah, so that's something I've been interested in, and I got these 2 books at Goodwill. They're listed at $2.50 each, and then I actually got them when they were half off, so I paid like $2.50 for 2 hardcover books. But the second one is my first R.A. Salvatore book. It's called The Ancient. So this one is about a guy who is journeying to look for his father, but in that journey he ends up getting wrapped into this like rebellion to stop this like tyrant king, and the king is planning to like basically destroy all of these little societies that live near this lake. And all of those groups of people are like in conflict with each other, so they don't even realize that these plans are going on. And so the main character, what is his name? Branson Garabond. He kind of ends up being the one that is stuck trying to stop this, and also is wrapped up in like all the different conflicts as well that are going on between like all of the different groups. I don't know anything about what type of writer R.A. Salvatore is. I just know that he's like written a lot of books. Like when I go into Barnes & Noble, I see so many of his books. So I figured, this book was like $1.25, so it might as well be like my first introduction into his works and see how I like them. The next book that I got is, I believe it was a webcomic first, so I don't know what they're called when they're in book form, but I got volume 3 of My Gently Raised Beast. I've really been enjoying this series, and it's about this girl who ends up finding out that she is the daughter of, I believe he's a duke, and her home situation once she like gets introduced into like higher society isn't really the best, but she ends up making friends with a prince of the like wildcat animal society that can like change form into humans and everything, and those cats and the humans have a complicated relationship. Like they kind of coexist but are also in conflict with each other. But so she ends up befriending the prince, and it's like a sweet, like slow developing romance. It like starts out when she's young and then progresses as she gets older. So we're only 3 volumes in. I haven't really decided if this is going to be a series that I end up keeping, but it is really enjoyable right now. And normally with manga, I try to read them like from the library or something first if I can. That way I can make sure that I like it before buying it, because they're $10 or more a piece. And so it gets expensive, especially when you get a series like Yona of the Dawn, where there's 39 now volumes. So I try to do the best I can to make sure it's something I'm really gonna enjoy before I buy it. But with these type of books, I don't believe they're as accessible, just because it's like a newer thing that isn't quite as popular, I don't think. So I've been trying out some different ones, and I'll read like the first few volumes that come out of it just to see like my feelings for it. And The reason why I'm 3 volumes in and unsure about this one is because it is really sweet, but the plot line of it, there's not really like a ton going on. So I just kind of have to wait and see how I feel with the next few. The next one I got was actually from the dollar store. I was actually pretty excited about it because I just like walk through just to see if maybe they have something good. Normally they don't, but it's an author that I've been really wanting to try. It's Gregory Maguire, and the book is A Wild Winter Swan. If you don't know, Gregory Maguire is the person that wrote Wicked, and I definitely want to read that as well. I've seen the musical years and years ago, like when I was in high school, and I loved it so much. So I am excited to read that, just haven't gotten to it. And I figured if he becomes an author I like, might as well have this too. And it was super cheap because it was from the dollar store. This book is about a girl who recently got expelled from her school, and she's going to be sent to a boarding school soon. To escape all of her worries and the things that are going on in her life, she's a really big daydreamer and likes like fairy tales and things like that. And one day this boy shows up, I think on her roof is what it said, and in place of one of his arms, he has like this swan wing. And she is really worried about her grandparents finding out about this. And she ends up like enlisting some help to keep this new person in her life a secret and stop him from like overturning her life. I'm a big lover of fairy tales, so I'm really actually excited about this book. I think it sounds like it's going to be right up my alley. From a recent Barnes & Noble trip, I got 3 volumes of manga. The first 2 were from a new series called My Happy Marriage. And me and my husband, we watched the anime for this recently. There's only a handful of episodes out right now, but we really enjoyed it. And so when I was at the store and I saw that they had the manga there, I knew that I wanted to pick them up and see how it compared and see if I enjoyed the manga as well. Especially since manga series tend to have like the story go further than where the anime is currently at. And I was ready to see what happens next, you know? Basically, this series is about this young woman who still lives with her family, because that's like the culture until you get married and everything. And they have constantly been like abusive and basically treat her like a servant. She lives with her father, her stepmother, and her stepsister. And she ends up getting married off to this man who is believed to be this awful person who is really cold, and the family just expects her to be treated awfully over there, and that's basically why they choose him to marry her to. But he ends up being like a really great guy who is just busy because of the position he holds and a little bit distant, even though he does put in a lot of effort. And it's a really sweet story, like just her kind of recovering from her past trauma and learning that she can be loved. So I'm really excited to see how the story progresses with this. I don't typically read a lot of stories that it's pretty much just romance, which there is some fantasy elements to this actually as well, but basically it's just a romance, at least so far. But when a story has like this level of emotional impact, I guess you could say, then I make exceptions. It hits at a different level. The 3rd manga volume that I got during this trip is actually the book out of all of these that I was the most excited and anticipating. It is Yona of the Dawn, volume 39. I am obsessed with this series, and this is a series where I actually look up the release date for the next volume, and I'm just counting down the days until I can get it. It is probably my favorite manga series that I've read. If you haven't heard of this series, it's about a princess who, after like a great tragedy, ends up on the run, and she has to keep her identity a secret. And it starts out just her kind of seeing her country for the first time. And there is a lot that goes on in this series. It's very political, and it also has a fair amount of action. And there is a little bit of romance, but it does not overtake the story at all. The main character starts out very like spoiled, I guess you could say, and ignorant of life. I think she's like 16, and she's just grown up like staying in her home. So when she ends up going on the run, there is an insane amount of character development for her, and I really enjoyed watching it. And the majority of the characters you meet, you end up getting to learn their stories as well at varying degrees, and I just think this manga series is perfect. So there's a used bookstore in the next town over from me, and it is one where you can like take books that you don't want anymore in, and they will actually buy them back from you with cash. Not a lot, but if I didn't take them there, I would just take them to Goodwill, so it's nice to get a little something back from it. And so whenever I do that, I check out the selection of fantasy books that they have. So this last trip, I was able to get 2 books, not having to pay anything, and was still able to get a little bit back. So that was really nice. The 2 books are from the same series. We have The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Adi. I don't know how you say that last name. Sorry if I said that wrong. And then I believe this is the sequel. Hopefully it's not like a third in a trilogy or something, but it's The Rose and the Dagger. I have heard of this series. Like, I had heard the titles before, but I never knew anything about what they were about. This first book, it's about this man who is a caliph. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I'm pretty sure that's like some kind of ruler. And each night he takes a new wife, only for her to end up dead the next morning. So the main female character is the first person to volunteer to be his wife. And she is doing this to get revenge on a friend that she lost, and also just for like all the other women who have lost their lives while being married to him. And she ends up surviving by telling him stories every night. Obviously, from the sound of it, this is a fantasy romance series, but it sounds really interesting to me, so I'm excited to check these 2 books out. The next book I got is a manhwa. It's called Imitation. This is the only volume that's out right now, at least that I know of. But it is about this girl named Mahali, and she is the singer in this small idol group, and they're like trying to get their name out, you know. But she ends up with like a bad publicity moment involving another idol, and it also creates friction between the 2 of them, but it does like skyrocket their group. So obviously the 2 idols are in the same field of work, and they end up having many moments now that she's getting more famous where they have to work together and get to know each other and kind of overcome their initial impressions. It seems cute, although I'm not sure if this is going to be one that I end up continuing. I'll probably read like 1, maybe 2 more volumes and see. The main thing that I felt when reading this series is that I really got nostalgic for one of the first anime I ever watched, Skip Beat. It's another series about this girl who goes into the idol industry, although that story is kind of, at least starts out from what I remember, it's like a revenge story. But I recently, like a few months ago, found out that the manga series is still ongoing. I couldn't believe that because I watched the anime when I was in like 5th grade. So I'm kind of curious to check out the manga series just to see if it's as good as I remember and I'll still enjoy it, or if it's just kind of like nostalgia clouding my judgment. This next book I got at Walmart and saw it really cheap, and I know that it is extremely popular, so I figured I'd check it out. It's Legendborn by Tracy Dion. I'm so bad at these last names, but I had never looked into what the series was about until now. It seems like it's about this girl who enrolls in a residential high school, and initially she thinks it's just like a normal high school, but she ends up witnessing like a magical attack, and also learns that there are students at her school that have magical abilities. And she also ends up learning that she is one of them, so she gets wrapped up in all of that. And there's also like a mystery element to it, I guess, involving her mother's death. So I'm really interested to read this. I've heard amazing things about it, especially from like some of my favorite booktubers, so I'm pretty sure it's gonna be great. The last book that I have to talk about is also a manga volume. It is the first volume of JiuJitsu Kaizen. I've actually read up through I think like the first 10 volumes now, but I'm really excited to have gotten this because a couple weeks ago I was reading a book and was really enjoying it, so I went to my husband and just started rambling about what it was about, and he listened to me talk for like 15 minutes and he's like, that sounds really similar to JiuJitsu Kaizen. So for my probably next video that I upload, I am planning to do like a book versus manga comparison and just see like how much they're similar or not, and also see like if you like one of them, do I think that you might like the other? So if that sounds like something that interests you, be sure to keep an eye out. All right, so that is the last of my book haul. I definitely buy a lot of books, especially when I can find them used. So I'm sure there'll be many more of these type of videos to come. Thank you for watching. Bye.